Hello everyone, it's Jen. I'm super excited to be sharing another multiple card video with a mini stamp set. This one is extra fun because I'm doing it in collaboration with my dear friend Mary Polanco. So we chose the Lawn Fawn Get Well Soon stamp set. This is an oldie but goodie. It has the little prescription bottle, the nurse birdie, and the band-aid. And we thought this would be good because some of you might have it in your stash and can play along. And it can also be used with different sentiments for healthcare heroes. So we're going to jump into card number 1. I'm going to do some stamping here with my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink on some Bristol Smooth cardstock. I went ahead and stamped the images out on some paper. Keep your eye to the top left hand of the screen there. I had a little helper in the craft room, and Piper decided to get my attention by swiping the little dish of my masks there. I'm using some Gina K masking paper, which is quickly becoming my favorite. So I'm going to create a little pile here of the Band-Aids and the prescription bottles with multiple stamping and masking. You just want to make sure that the images you want in the front are the ones that you stamp first. And always remember to add those masks because otherwise you will have some misstamping. So you can see here, I'm just working my way. I started out with the Band-Aid and then I used my masks to cover those, added some of the pill bottles, again covering those with the masks. And then I'm just continually rotating between the prescription bottles and the Band-Aids as I move from the bottom of my paper up to the top. And you don't need a mask for every single image that you stamp. You can simply do what I'm doing here, where I'm grabbing the ones from the bottom when I know that I'm done in that area and I can move them up to the top. You just want to be careful handling those masks because sometimes the ink can transfer. So if you're worried about that, you could also use your tweezers just to help you ensure that you're not getting ink on your fingers. So you can see here again, I'm moving some of these masks, just being really careful to lift them up. Once I get near the top of my pile, I will take off all of the masks, and then that will help me see if I need to do any extra stamping to kind of fill out my little pile here. Now, in creating this card, I did mean to leave room to stamp the little nurse birdie on the top of one of the prescription bottles. But in the end, I ended up having my pile a little too high and had to leave that off. But I still think this is super cute just with the two images. So here's where I've taken off all the masks, and I felt like I needed one more image or a couple to the right-hand side of my pile here just to balance this out a little bit better. So I'm going to bring in my Band-Aid here, and I think that last one should do it. So now that I have my card panel complete, I can go ahead and work on the coloring. Today I am leaving my Copic markers on the shelf, and I brought out my Arteza Real Brush Pens. And I have to say, I fell in love with these all over again, creating the cards. They just make coloring really simple, and I will leave a link to these down in the description box as well as everything that I'm using today. So when I have a bunch of images like this, I find it easiest to pick the one that will be the easiest to color and stick to one of the images and color them all in. So I chose the Band-Aids, and I will also list the colors that I used for the markers in the description box. I only used 6 markers in total for all of these cards, which is great. I didn't have a million markers out on my desk. So like I said, I will have those colors linked below. Just using my water brush pen here. This has some water in it, and I'm moving that color throughout the image. So where I actually laid the marker down, the color down with the marker, that will stay a little bit darker, and then with the water I can pull that out and get some contrast from the darker edges and then have it lighter in the center where I'm thinning out that color with the water. So for my pill bottles, I'm using this really pretty teal color, And I'm just adding the shadows underneath the top of the bottle and then to the sides. And again, I'll just bring my water in. You can see how beautifully these blend on the Bristol Smooth cardstock. I would recommend this cardstock if you're doing any coloring with real brush markers, whatever the brand. So I'm just going to finish up the pill bottles. For the labels and the lids, I'm just going to use a gray marker just to add a little bit of coloring. I want the labels and the lids to appear white, but I do want to give them a little bit of interest. And you can see it sometimes I'm just going to add some clean water to areas where I may have got a color where I didn't want it, and then I can just pick that up with my paper towel. So here's where I'm adding the shadows with my gray marker, and then again just pulling that color out to the center, and that gives a really nice shaded look to that white. I had a lot of fun, like I said, playing with my real brush markers, and I love the color combination that I use so much that I actually use the same colors throughout all 5 of the cards. So you could definitely switch up the colors. My original idea was to do some of these in rainbow colors, but I just fell in love with this color palette, so I kept it simple for all 5 of the cards. Just bringing in some pink for the hearts, and I have all of my coloring complete. So I am going to cut this panel out with a stitched Wonky rectangle die. And then I can go ahead and add my panel to my card base. All my cards today are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I thought it was time to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. So I'm going to use this sentiment that comes in the stamp set that says "Get Well Soon." I love how big this sentiment is. I love the font of it, and I think it just carries the images really well being this larger size. So I did go ahead and stamp this to the bottom of the pile. I noticed that I forgot to blend in some of those colors well, so I'm just bringing in my water brush here again and just using it to blend those colors a little bit more. So for a final touch for this card, I'm bringing in my Catherine Pooler ink in Pink Champagne. There's a little heart in the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp this around my pile of Band-Aids and prescription bottles. This will also help just fill in some of those areas where my pile isn't quite symmetrical on both sides, but I love the organic feel of this card. So once I have that done, we can go ahead and add a little bit of detail here with some Nouveau Glaze to the hearts, and this card will be complete. So here's a close-up look of card number 1. For card number 2, I'm just going to use the little Band-Aid in the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp out my sentiment first. So I'm using my mini Misty here just to make sure that if I need to stamp it a second time, I can, to get that nice crisp black image for my sentiment. And once I get that done, then I'm going to add my Band-Aids here, and I'm just going to stamp these with a block, but I like leaving it on my Misty because that foam pad in the Misty really helps ensure that you get a nice crisp image even if you're stamping with a stamp block. So I'm going to add 5 of the Band-Aids in the middle of the card going down the center. I did add the little happy face here to all of the Band-Aids. I think that just gives a cute little look to this card, makes it a little bit more fun and playful for the recipient. I did get a little bit of smudge of ink, so I'm going to bring in my white eraser to clean that up. And then I can go ahead with the coloring. Now, with the coloring for this, because it was fairly simple, I did end up going over the Band-Aids a couple times. So you can see here with this second coat, it just gives even more dimension to the images. I did add a line of gray ink to the bottom of the Band-Aids. I thought that that would help them stand out a little bit. Added some rosy cheeks, and then going to add some glaze pen to the eyes, and that will finish up card number 2. So I can go ahead and add this to my card base. I did need to trim this up a little bit, so I'm just bringing in my Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer. and then I can add this to the card base. So very clean and simple cards today, lots of white space, but I think these images are so cute that they don't really need a lot of fuss. So I am going to add some Nouveau Glaze to the entire image, and this will just add a nice glossy effect to the Band-Aids, a really easy way to kind of step up a clean and simple card. And then this card is complete. I'll show you a little bit of a close-up here, and then we can move on to card number 3. So for card number 3, I'm going to bring in the little nurse birdie, and I thought this one was really fun. I wanted it to look like the little birdie nurse was actually holding up the prescription bottle, and then the hearts were spilling out of the bottle, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mask off my stamp here. So I want to have the get well soon coming out of the bottle as well, but I wanted it to be just the single words as it kind of fell from the bottle to the bottom of the card. So I started off stamping the get, and then I moved to the bottom for stamping the soon. I just wanted to figure out where I wanted the placement to be for our well word. So I thought it was easiest just to stamp that sentiment at the bottom, and then I can get good placement for the word that I want in the middle. So I am going to go ahead and draw in a little rope here or thread for the little birdie for how she's holding on to the prescription bottle. So I just made a little bow by her feet, and I'm using my Memento marker here, which is great for adding in some drawings on your cards. I don't do this very often, but I thought this was really fun and just added something different for the card. So I went ahead and colored those up. I will show you how I color the bird in card coming up. But now I'm just going to go ahead and use that little heart stamp again, and I'm going to stamp a bunch of the hearts falling out of the bottle, and I did somehow get my finger right into that ink, so I just used my stamp chamois there to clean that off of my finger, and then kept going with the stamping. I wanted there to be kind of a bunch of hearts there to the bottom as if they were falling and kind of collecting to the bottom. And then I did go ahead and stamp one above the little nurse as well, just to carry that forward. I am going to bring in some confetti here. These are by Trinity Stamps, and this just adds a little bit of sparkle and shimmer to the card, and I thought it just added something extra for what was coming out of the bottle. So moving on to the next card, card number 4. This, I think, is my favorite card. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp the images around all of the sides of this will be the back panel of my card. I will create a focal panel as well. Now this is cut a little bit larger than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I will cut this out with a stitched rectangle die, just making sure that I'm filling in all the areas, and I'm going to bring in the little heart stamp as well to fill in the smaller areas. So there's lots of similarities with these cards, using the same color of ink for the hearts and then the same color palette for all of the cards. So I went ahead and colored all those images. Look how cute that looks. And now I'm going to die cut out the panel that I'm going to use for the background, as well as the focal panel for this particular card. So I'm not worried that the center doesn't have any images, because you can see here I'm going to use this focal panel to place on top of the one I just created. So I'm going to go ahead and do some masking for this card as well. I'm going to start with the little pill bottle, and I'm going to stamp my little nurse birdie to the top. I'm going to use one of my masks here to cover up the pill bottle, and then I'm going to stamp the little band-aid and then work my way, as you'll see here, just creating a little bit of a scene with these images. So I hope you have a great time watching my video and Mary's. I'm super excited to see what 5 cards she came up with. So I did 5, Mary did 5 for a total of 10 card ideas with a mini stamp set. And we'd love for you to play along. If you like this kind of video, please give us a like on each of the videos so we know that this is something you may want to see again in the future. And if you have a suggestion for another mini stamp, then go ahead and leave that in the comment section below, and maybe we'll be able to pick one of those stamps and do another collaboration. So I'm just going to go ahead and color up my images. Here's my little nurse birdie. I'm coloring that in yellow, and then I am going to give her a little bit of rosy cheeks with pink, and I also colored her little beak in with the pink as well, just for consistency in the coloring. I am not really a fan of orange, so I didn't want to bring in an orange color. I am going to stamp the little cross on her hat as well. And for this card, I'm bringing in a sentiment from MFT. This stamp set is called Gift Card Greetings. I'm not sure if it's still available, but there's also lots of free sentiments right now that would work for healthcare providers. And so I wanted to show you how you could create a card using stuff in your stash with mini stamp sets like this if you want to make something for a healthcare provider during these times that we're in. So this sentiment says, "Thank you for going above and beyond." I thought this was quite relevant for sending this. I'm going to send this to a friend of mine who is a nurse. And if you don't have a stamp set like this, you could always use this similar card style with the Get Well Soon sentiment that comes in the stamp set. So now that I have my focal panel done, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the back panel here that I created. And then I'm going to add some hearts again, just to fill out the focal panel here and also to carry that through from the background panel. So just a few. Love how the pink really goes nicely with the teal and the yellow. Just going to add a little Nouveau Glaze to the hearts and the beak of our nurse. And there we go, we're done with that card. So moving on to the final card, card number 5. I'm going to go ahead and stamp out the sentiment 3 times. So I'm kind of going just below the halfway mark on that first stamp with the sentiment. I'm going to add the little nurse birdie on top of the 2 L's in the Get Well Soon. And then I'm going to stamp the sentiment again towards the bottom, and I'm going to add the little pill bottle with that sentiment. And then the final one to the top of the card, and I'll add the little band-aid to the top of that. Now I did do a similar card like this, and I'll show you it when I slow down the videos and go through, slow down the video and show you all the cards I made. So make sure to hang around till the end to see how I used this similar design but changed it up a little bit. And for this one, I decided to change up the coloring, and I did the lid and the label of the pill bottle here in a blue instead of the body of the bottle or the container part. And then I'm just going to color that in white. So just switched it up a little. I'm going to add my pink here, and then I can go ahead and add my details with the black glaze pen. I did use the black glaze pen on the little cross for this one. And then just using my white gel pen to add some details. I added some little freckles on the birdie for this one. Now when I stamped the top sentiment here, I got a little bit of a smudge. So I'm just going to fix that up with my white gel pen. And once I do that, the gel pen that I used is a bit thick, so I did need to come back in and just fix that a little with my black marker, but it cleaned it up really nicely. So you can still fix your stamping if you don't get a crisp image, so don't give up when things don't always come out the way you want them to. So again, just going to add some of these stamps here with the little heart and my pink champagne ink. Just going to add one more, and that will complete the design for the final card. Again, just using a little bit of Nouveau glaze here. So we're going to slow this down. I'm going to show you all 5 cards again. Let me know which one was your favorite. Don't forget to head on over to Mary's channel to see what she created. I will link to her video. I'm going to try to link it at the end of the video, but also you'll find it in the description box below. Let me know which one was your favorite. I think they all turned out super cute. It's amazing what you can do with a mini stamp set. So here's where I'm going to show you the other card that I made. I just kind of added all of the images to that middle sentiment. Love how they both turned out. So thanks everybody for watching. Here's a couple more videos for you. I will see you really soon in the next video. And if you make some cards with mini stamp sets, don't forget to tag Mary and I so we can see your creations. Thanks everybody. Have a fantastic day. Bye.